It was a typical Sunday, somewhere, AD, and I was once again on the verge toward epic greatness. But I had to collect all the pieces necessary to complete my task. I was once told that the first born son to break the womb was always the chosen one. I traveled back in time to witness the true events that would set up our future, a future of strange events, where you find out that everything ever known was a lie. A future where downside is up and upside is down. If you're hearing the sound of my voice, this is a warning. One time for your mind.
Welcome back to another edition of One Time for Your Mind. I'll be your host for today, T. Tate. Today's topic is Black women and the identity crisis we have here in America. So let's get right into it. In the last decade to 2 decades, it seems as if going natural has gotten back in style. Being comfortable in your own skin has gotten back in style. But is this a wave, or is this the way of the future? So let's look at our track history. Part of the reason that Black women have always had an identity crisis in America is because they have been forced to adapt to whatever society says is beautiful at that moment. And when I say they have been forced to adapt to it, I mean you're not going to be supported or noticed if you are not following the mainstream, or if you are noticed, it is not going to be in a positive light. So even though your natural state of hair may be beautiful to you, society says it's not. So when you take pictures, or when you are posting things, or when you're out here and you're trying to put yourself into corporate America, they're not going to be as apt to accepting you in your natural state. So when you come in and you're too black, quote unquote, meaning you have this afro, you are highlighting your large lips, your wide nose, your wide hips, so forth and so on, you are looked at as a threat and not somebody that they can easily approach. And then you have the misconception that all black women are angry, they're overly opinionated, and dare I say it, we can be considered ghetto just because you speak your mind. So what do? If you want to be accepted, you conform. And when you conform, you do what? You wear the straight hair, whether it's your hair that you have permed or added some type of chemical to, or you put on a wig that looks less threatening, less quote unquote black. Then you have to lighten your skin. They go as far as bleaching their skin, because when you're on camera it looks a certain way when your skin is darker. Or dark skinned women are not as appealing to the eye as a light skinned woman, or a fairer skin, or of some other ethnicity other than the black woman. So when you are faced with these challenges every day, and you do it from a kid, I can remember being told as a kid, being dark skinned, I sweat coffee, and everybody laughed. They thought it was so funny because I was that dark. Okay. And then you embed that to when you go home, you have really nappy coarse hair, your parents telling you have bad hair. So then you take on the mind frame of everything about me in my natural state is bad. So then you don't know who you need to be like. But now, stepping into this new decade, if you have curves, it's in. Your big lips are in. Your nappy hair is in. The locks are in. You in your natural state is in. But it's not only in for you, it's in for other races as well. And now, the very thing they shunned you because of is becoming a thing that everybody wants. So what do you do now, black woman? Now do you let go of all of the things that you thought about yourself, all those negative thoughts you had of yourself when you were younger, and embrace the new you? Or do you stick to what you know society is accepting, and you still try to downplay those characteristics of yourself that could be viewed as ghetto or threatening or very opinionated or angry? I find it very hard to believe that because of the way I look, I can be perceived as an angry black woman. But you very rarely hear somebody say, there they go, those angry white women, or those angry Asian women, or those angry Hispanic women. You don't hear that as often as you hear the angry black woman. And it's almost like you're painted into a corner because you have had to support and protect and provide in ways that were unnatural to your natural nature. Like, you were not supposed to have to be the head, the protector, the provider. But the way they broke up the black family put you in a position of where it was either you go out in front or your family fails. And as a mother, you want to do what you have to do, so you go out in front. And then when you have to take on the roles of what the man should be doing, of course it makes you bitter towards your spouse. Thus entails it breaks up the family. So now you got this extra strong black woman who is still only having to be that strong at home, but out in society's view, she has to be this timid person. She can't say how she feels. She can't have an opinion. Otherwise, she'll be labeled. So it's like you're torn. You don't know whether to be a warrior princess, the warrior, the head of the house, the submissive. You don't know if you're supposed to be out here being the breadwinner or what your role is. You're just having to adapt, and you're getting beat up on every side. So of course you are in a state where you have an identity crisis because you don't know your role, because you have not been allowed to operate in your role 100% in no facet. You've not been able to be proud of who you are out in public. And then if you are home and you are too proud, then you are stepping on the toes of a man. And it's not all men, it's some of the ones who have the ego. So if your man is insecure in his role and you are naturally really strong, of course you pose a threat to him. So then what do? Now you got to change your identity at home. But because corporate America was not giving jobs to our men, they were not providing for housing, food, that sort of thing. If the man was present, you had to act as if he was not present. And then with him feeling like, I'm not being a help to my family, you step away from your family, and now this woman has to be everything. But then she comes home, and if you try to stay and hide out in the house and do your part as the head of the household, but she looking at it like, I'm bringing in the money, and corporate America is telling her the person who has the money makes the rules. Now you have an internal conflict. So now with this internal conflict, he's telling you, when you go out into the world, yes, close your mouth. Yes, do what they need to do because our family needs this. But when you come home, you also should be closing your mouth and bowing down to who is supposed to be the head of the household. You have no idea in which direction you're supposed to be going in. Nobody is defending you. There is nobody more slept on in this country than the black woman. There's nobody more unprotected in this country than the black woman. There's nobody who is more misguided in this country than the black woman. So of course you are at a state where you have identity crisis because you have to wear every hat, but you're not respected for all of those hats. And depending on the genre you're in, or depending on what part of your day you are in, you got to switch out your roles so that you are not viewed as threatening to somebody. Whether that threatening party is your spouse, whether that threatening party is your child's teacher at school, whether the threatening party is your boss at work. It's like if a man is aggressive in his plight to become CEO or whatever, he's looked at as a great leader. He's looked at as not an emotional person, not an angry person, and that's regardless if it's a black man or a white man. But if a woman has those same type of ambition, she is overly emotional. She is a threat. She is, dare I say it again, ghetto. If you come into a situation and you can have all your facts laid out and you can be standing on your own 2 feet and defending everything that you know is right, if it comes out in a certain tone, they're going to undermine all of the facts that you brought to the table and say that you are ghetto. So it puts you in a situation to where, when do you take your mask off? Have you ever taken your mask off? Do you know what to do when you take your mask off? Is there anybody there in your corner who accepts you without all of those roles that you have to play for everybody? Is there anybody in your corner, black woman, who allows you to be that woman who you aspire to be? Is there anybody pushing you, or is the majority of the world threatened by your strength? And as a result of being threatened by your strength, you fall short. So you're not able to be all that which you could be because you don't have the same support system as most. Oftentimes I see a lot of articles that say black women are not being chosen by black men because they do not know how to be submissive. But if you look at the situation that way back from the Willie Lynch letters, the way they broke the black family down and how they put the black woman in a position of fear so that she would protect her kids, so she had to shun the man in order to protect her family overall. And she also had to stand and watch the male get beat, to get disrespected, get drugged, all these things as a method of, let me show you if I can break the head of your household, you will make sure the next generation of men that come from you are already broken. So then you look at this woman like, I got to do what I got to do to make sure my family does not end up like this, to make sure my sons don't end up in the same position that their father ended up in. And no, it is not his fault, but when you put a woman in that type of situation, you remember that the hand that rocked the cradle rules the world. She is the first teacher. So if you teach her to fear, you teach her to not understand her identity, then of course she's going to teach that to your children. She's going to teach that to all kids. So then when you say, okay, black women don't know how to submit, that was beaten out of them. They were taught the only person to submit to was quote unquote massa. So when you tell them that, then they look at the black man as having very little to no significance. And what black man want to be with a woman who views them as having very little to no significance? None. So it's not that she doesn't know he has significance. She was taught to not acknowledge his significance. And then in turn, it makes him not want to be with that type of woman. You want to be with somebody who views you as a head. Most black women were not taught that. We teach our black girls every day to be strong and to not need a man. Whereas every other culture teaches their women that you do need a partner. You can't do it alone, and somebody is supposed to guide you. You are a woman. You are the fairer sex. Somebody is supposed to lead, and it's not supposed to be you. But we teach our black girls to lead by any means and to never depend on anybody. So then you see black women who don't know how to depend on somebody, who do not know how to ask for help, who do not know how to take their mask off. So it becomes a bigger identity crisis than just the looks. So on the surface, it looks like she's lost because she's wearing long nails like Asians. She is wearing weave that came from China. She's putting on makeup to make her features look less obtrusive and to look more European. So on the surface, it looks as if she does not know who she is, but it goes deeper than that. And if you do not have a spouse that is educated enough to make you understand, no, I take care of this role so that you can be just the woman that you are supposed to be. If you don't have that kind of balance, it's going to be a fight within the household, and the woman is still in the identity crisis. And then you don't want to be viewed in the household as the disciplinarian, although most times women have to be that now because they have removed so many men from homes. So now the woman is the disciplinarian. That's generally the man's role. The woman gets better jobs. The woman gets better pay on these jobs. Generally what the man would do. And then it makes him seem as if he is less important in the household. So now in order for her not to repeat the cycle, she has to put on a different mask in the house so that her son doesn't see that she doesn't look at the man as the head, because you want your son to grow up to be the head. And now you're in a situation where, do you teach your daughter to be strong because you know society is going to look at her differently and she's going to have to wear these masks? Or do you teach your daughter to be submissive, in which is her natural role, and you know she won't survive in the world? So you're stuck. You got on a mask outside the house to be accepted, a mask inside the house. You're confused on how you're going to teach your young people because you don't know how much of a submissive to be to show your son that this is normal. You don't know how much of a leader to be to show your daughter you can be this without being a threat to your partner, to your equal. So you only perpetuate that same phase into another group of people. So now not only is that black woman lost, her mother before her was lost. Definitely her mother before her, because she was really the main victim. If she was around in the age of COINTELPRO, she's the main victim, and she trickled that down and taught that to every generation after her. Oftentimes when you talk about black families and who's the head, they say grandma, big mom. You rarely hear them say anything about the grandfather being the head, when in actuality, by the natural order of things, it should have been him. But the grandmother was taught by her mother before her to fear only one type of person and not to respect the black man, but only to respect the white man. So now look at it. Now you have a broken family. So now in this age, in 2020, as a black woman, what do? Do you submit to somebody who is less than worthy of your submission, or do you try to build them up and get them to that place? And oftentimes, if somebody is not used to a true submissive, or they don't understand submission and they view it as weakness, they'll break you. They will break you, and then you're going to be scarred from it. So then you're going to teach your young girls, well, I already tried that don't work. You got to take charge. You got to do this. You got to do that. So how do we stop the cycle? So it's a challenge for the woman to stay in her place, but it's also a challenge for a black man to show her what her place is, and not in a forceful way, but in a loving way. Make her understand that it does not make her weak to submit. Make her understand that it does not make her less than his equal because he is the head. And if you can do that, then she can in turn teach our youth that it's okay for you to let somebody else lead sometimes. It's okay for you not to always be in charge. But I also don't want to downplay the type of leadership skills our black women have, because they do have great leadership skills. So it's kind of like a catch-22, and you between a rock and a hard place, because when do you take your mask off for that? When do you go out here and show the world that you are a force to be reckoned with and be recognized as such, and not viewed as some emotional ghetto woman that's just out here doing whatever? It's a question that I often contemplate on, especially when I'm stepping into meetings. Okay, even though I have the facts behind me, watch your tone. Watch your body language. Don't move your head too much to the left or the right, because they're going to perceive you as ghetto. Don't act too interested in a situation, because then you're emotional and it discredits everything that you have studied and learned. It discredits you. So the mask is ever present. You do have to switch it on and off on a regular basis. I would just tell you, in the moment of having to be that type of person, be comfortable in the skin that you are in and know when to do what. It is hard in the beginning to learn when to do what, but when you have a supportive team around you, it makes it easier for you to operate in your natural state. But it does take a team of support in order for that to take place. Because if you always have to step up and step over or be in charge of something, you're going to be less likely to want to give up the reins of doing something. But if you have a partner that is capable of taking care of those things, it makes you more at ease with letting somebody else be in charge. So when you are home, and I have to start out with home, because that's where everything starts from. So when you are home and you learn to operate without a mask and to be your natural, powerful black self, it's much easier for you to train our next generation to do the same. So I encourage you to be your own self, walk in your own truth. It's okay if your hair nappy, if you like it straight, that's okay too. As always, thank you for tuning in. 1 time for your mind, 2 times for the grind. I'm out.
We've come to a conjunction in time where people just have to be informed. One time. One time for your mind. That's the end of the song. Different dead, another dog, but always the same drum. Why I gotta take death for the family to come together? Leave hating to the face, take time to love each other. We all out in this wicked world, ain't nothing new to me. I got a key, but I keep a gun for security. The government fabricate a lot of rap, your community. I'm getting rate on my money, cause Uncle Sam screwing me. On top of things now, the gal didn't to you underground. You know what's going down, it goes around, comes back around. You was eating good, but it's time for you to suffer now. Lost all respect, found your heart in a lost found. I got it right in the song called When I Call Your House, You Don't Pick Up the Phone. I don't mean to clean your claw, hope you shit find a dime. Me and Doug are very fly, hold your doors slam locked. One time. One time. One time for your mind.